I noticed that Michelle put something on the Facebook page about Job. I had assumed that everybody had heard of it, or that just anybody would just look it up, mainly because in our past books, when there was a word or something that somebody didn't know, we would always come back and somebody had looked it up. And so I apologize for not putting like a little excerpt about what Job, the book of Job was about. So did anybody read it or have a better understanding, or still don't know what the book of Job is?
No, I read the excerpt. I read the explanation.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I know what the book of Job is.
Oh, okay. So does anybody want to answer any of the questions?
The book of Job. I question the book of Job also. First of all, we don't know who the author was. So that's my understanding. So I'm not quite sure whether someone's imagination got the best of them, or, you know. I guess you have to believe in the book of Job in order to answer the question properly, and I just struggle with that. It's one thing to test a person to see if they will hold steadfast to their beliefs, but I can't imagine God doing that. I can't imagine God, telling Satan that here's Job, do as you please. Don't lay a hand on him, but do as you please. I mean, what? I mean, that doesn't really sound like a very caring and loving God to me. I mean, that's how I feel. So I'm not quite sure, even if the book of Job is fictitious, because we don't know the author. I mean, a lot of the Bible I do question anyway. Sometimes I kind of wonder if somebody had 2 glasses of wine, or some of it's just way out there. But no, really. But Job, I question that. I can imagine God playing with someone's life like that. And then ultimately at the end, what really throws me is, okay, Job proves that he's going to hold steadfast to God. So then God gives him back everything he had and twice the amount. Really? I just find that hard to believe.
I didn't have any problem relating to the story of Job. I mean, it feels like my own life story. Some of the details are different, but some of the key elements: losing everything, getting bad advice from family and friends, being accused of all kinds of things by family and friends, people who've known me my entire life, and having a period of restoration. I said before you came in, Joelle, I'm really not feeling good tonight. I have a cold that's trying to get me, but I wanted to tell you all about the health breakthrough that I had, and I didn't know if it was going to work its way into one of my stories that I could relate to the book or not, but actually I think it does relate. So you all have heard me talk about my carbon monoxide poisoning that came through a hole in my vehicle, a vehicle that I bought in 1996. And shortly thereafter, I started getting really sick. And, and from then it just, like Job, became one damn thing after another, until ultimately my life just completely fell apart. And so that has been, that's almost 20 years ago. And even after I started getting the CO out of my system, which happened in 2003, I have still had some what I believed were residual effects from the poisoning, like always having a slight sense of brain fog and not being able to speak as clearly as I used to, and I felt like there was some low level of brain damage that I was left with. And, we just don't imagine, that there's going to be a cure for brain damage. So a few weeks ago, I was talking. My part-time job is doing medical research. I interview people about the medicines they take. And so I was talking to this guy, and I may have to run over a couple of minutes, Venita. So I was talking to this guy, and he was going on, and I was like, oh my God, I wish he would just pay attention and let us get through this very long process. But he was going on, and then he said something about having leg cramps. And I said, leg cramps? And he said, yeah. And he said, and I started drinking quinine water, and it cleared them up. And I said, quinine water? I have leg cramps. So he started telling me all where he gets the tonic water. You got to get it at the Piggly Wiggly and all this. And I was like, ugh. But anyway, and how he puts a little lemon juice, fresh, squeezes fresh lime juice in it because it doesn't really taste good. So shortly thereafter, I got some and I tried it. And this was like right after our session ended. And maybe in about a couple of weeks, I noticed I didn't feel this brain fog that I've been living with for almost 20 years. And then I tried to speak, and I said, I can speak. It doesn't feel like the effort. And I was like, oh, shit. And so I have been waiting over these last 6 weeks to see, for the shoe to drop and go back to feeling to my bad self. But other than the cold that I picked up yesterday, I have felt great, literally great, these last 6 weeks. So, so I don't have all well, I never had as much as Job had in the first place. So I have not been restored in the way that he was. But the general arc of the story feels very, very familiar to me. So, I don't know about the part about God setting up a deal with Satan, but to me, that's how the Bible is generally, that it has had this appeal that has lasted for thousands of years because it tells stories that relate to human nature and human experiences, and we keep having those same experiences. I'm done.
Thank you.
Okay.
Georgette, it looked like you want to say something. Did you?
Well, yeah. Well, what's quinine water? But
Actually, Georgette, when I did a little bit of reading about it, and it is for leg cramps and people with arthritis and people with lupus take it. And quinine, it's been around, of course, forever. Is one of those home remedies. So there was a product, a medicine that contained quinine water that was on the market for a while, specifically for leg cramps, but the FDA took it off the market because some people were having side effects from
Okay.
it. But you can buy it right in the grocery store, 87 cents
Hmm.
a bottle. You know?
Okay. We got some Piggly Wigglies down here. I might have to drop in. For a
I'm
couple.
telling you, I've never seen anything like it.
Wow. Okay. Well, congratulations on finding yourself a cure there.
Thank
Well, that's
you.
cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Hmm. But to piggyback on what both you, Michelle, said and Venita about Job, I think stories like that, when you read them, they're like, they sound like a parent telling a child, well, let me explain why the sky is blue kind of thing. You know, so you
Yeah.
tell them a story uh, and you give the characters human qualities to explain why things happen. And so even as a child, hearing the story of Job in church, you know, I kind of it had kind of had that ring to me, you know, because here you have the God of the Old Testament, and he's a harsh God, and then the God of the New Testament, he's forgiving. So you're trying to balance these two entities to explain why things happened in the past and why they should be different in the future. And so, relating that to what Lauren, our character, is feeling, yeah, I felt that same way about a lot of things in the Bible, not just the story of Job. And then,
Kim,
Yeah.
you're a little quiet. Anything on your mind?
Well, I wasn't quite sure of the format, and normally sometimes when I'm reading fiction, it's more talking about what's going on with the narrator and the characters in that book. And so to flip it and talk about how we relate to it is really interesting. So um, I'm thinking a lot. I have a lot to say. So I'm saying, what's the most important thing that you feel? And I'm like, and every time somebody says something, and I'm like, yeah, that's right, yeah. So I'm all over the place. I'm all over the place. But I will say, in terms of Job and both the poor, I do have this feeling of disappointment in the church that it seems to be a distraction more than something that says let's unify and let's create a co-op or let's do something that gets us out of this situation as opposed to just giving money to the pastor so he gets a new car.